Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is Hemalata from Panvadyashram. In today's session, we are going to see the continuation of the lesson in the earliest cities. We had already studied about the people who lived in the Indus civilization, who were settled near the Indus River, and about the infrastructure of the cities. Today we will see the new crafts in the city and what kind of raw materials they have used to make different kind of objects which were used by them, and what food was irrigated by them, and what kind of objects were used by them for irrigation, all those things. New crafts in the city. So the objects that were made and found in the Harappan cities, most of the things that have been found by archaeologists are made of stone, shell, and metal, including copper and bronze. Gold and silver were also used by them. Copper and bronze were used to make tools, weapons, ornaments, and vessels. Gold and silver were used to make ornaments and vessels. So, the people mostly used copper and bronze for the tools, weapons which were made by them, and the gold and silver were used to make ornaments and vessels too. The most striking finds are those beads, weights, and blades were also found in the cities. They had ways to measure the objects, things which were sold by them, and also the blades were found out. So, with the help of blades, they had created small beads, and lot of beads were also found. So, this is the picture of stone weights. So notice carefully that these weights are shaped. These were made of chert. Chert is a kind of stone. So these were probably used to weight the precious stones or metals. So these are the beads. Many of these were made out of carnelian. So it is a beautiful red stone. So the stone was cut, shaped, polished, and finally a hole was bored through the center so that string could be passed through it. So they can wear it as an ornament. So this is a stone blade. So as I said, these stone blades were used to carve the stones and make the beads. And also a statue was found out in the cities. So this is that statue. So you can see the embroidered cloth which was carved beautifully in this statue. It was found at Mohenjo-daro. The embroidered garment which was carved in this statue was very beautifully carved. The common people would have worn the shells, metals, ornaments, and copper bronze ornaments. The rulers must be used gold and silver ornaments which are precious, and precious stones were also used by the people. The Harappans also made seals out of stones. So the seals are generally in rectangular in shape and usually have animal carved on them to specially find out which seal belongs to which person. So the Harappans also made pots with beautiful black designs such as this pot. Then we will see about the cotton. So cotton was probably grown some 7,000 years ago at Mehergarh. The archaeologists had found a piece of cloth which was attached to a silver vase. On the lid of that silver vase, a cloth was attached. And some copper objects at Mohenjo-daro was also found. And they also found a spindle whorls which was made up of terracotta and faience. So these were used to spin thread. So you already know what is terracotta. Terracotta is the clay which was used to make objects, and then it will be sun dried to become hard. Now we'll see what is faience. So unlike stone or shell that are found naturally, faience is a material that is artificially produced. A gum was used to shape sand or powdered quartz into an object. So the objects were then glazed, resulting in a shiny, glassy surface. The colors of the glaze were usually blue or sea green. So this faience was used to make beads, bangles, earrings, and tiny vessels also been made with this faience. Many of the things that were produced were probably the work of specialists. A specialist is a person who is trained to only one kind of work. For example, the cutting stone or polishing beads or carving seals, these are about a different kind of works. So only the specialists will do these works so that the work will come out in a very beautiful way. So if you look at this statue which I showed you earlier, this shows how finely the face was carved, the beard was carved, and look at the embroidery which was done in the cloth of this statue. So this must be the work of an expert craft person. So not everybody could have been a specialist. We do not know whether only men were specialists or only women were specialists. Perhaps some women and men may have been specialists. The Harappans were also traders. For the search of raw materials, they had traveled into the subcontinent. The raw materials are substances that are either found naturally, such as wood or ores of metals, or produced by farmers or herders. So these are processed to produce finished goods. For example, cotton produced by farmers is a raw material. So that must be processed and for the making of cloth. So while some of the raw materials that the Harappans used were available locally, but many of the items such as copper, tin, gold, silver, and some precious stones had to be brought from distant places. So the traders had done the trade with the distant civilizations that were far away from the subcontinent. The Harappans probably got copper from present day Rajasthan and even from Oman, which is in West Asia. So tin, which was mixed with copper to produce bronze, may have been brought from present day Afghanistan and Iran. Gold could have come all the way from present day Karnataka, and precious stones were from present day Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. So here the city was very busy and the people were very busy with the trade. The Harappans had traveled to a distant places for the trade. So we have no idea how they traveled. But here we got some evidences which were found out by the archaeologists. So this image is a toy of a cart. So with the help of this cart, they must have been traveled into the continent. The goods would have been transported from one place to the other place. So this toy must be an illustration, and this must show us that how the original cart which were used by them must be. So this is a seal. So in this seal we can see an image of a ship. So the archaeologist found this seal and they studied that they would have been used these kind of ships to travel to the distant far places like Iran and other places. With these findings, we came to know about what kind of transportation were done during those earliest period and how people traveled from one place to other place. Now we will see about the food of the people, how they done all kind of irrigations, what kind of food they were used during early period. While many people lived in the cities, others living in the countryside grew crops and reared animals. Mostly the people who were living in the cities were doing the occupation like the trade and making objects, all those things. But the people who had settled above the countryside, they were doing the agriculture and the rearing process. So these farmers and herders supplied food to craft persons, scribes, and rulers in the cities. We know from remains of plants that the Harappans grew wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseed, and mustard. A new tool, the plough, was used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds. So this is a toy plough. So today in many farming communities only men use the plough, but we do not know whether the Harappans followed such customs or not. So with this toy illustration, the archaeologist found they must have been used plough for irrigation. While real ploughs, which were probably made of wood, have not survived this long, but this toy model have been found. So as this region does not receive heavy rainfall, some form of irrigation may have been used. So this must be the water would have been stored and supplied to the fields when the plants were growing and whenever they need to flow the water to the fields. The Harappans reared cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. Water and pastures were available around settlements. However, in the dry summer months, large herds of animals were probably taken to greater distances in search of grass and water. So they also collected fruits like bear, caught fish, and hunted wild animals like the antelope. So they were getting their crops, their food from the farmers, and the farmers were also rearing animals like cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. They were rearing for their food and other dairy products. And these farmers, they also collected fruits and they also caught fish, they hunted wild animals, etc. And their things were also used for their food. Now we will just recap the lesson which we studied today. So the new crafts, what kind of crafts were there? The archaeologist had found lot of things which were made by them, which were the remains. The objects which were made out of stone, shell, and metals. Metals like copper, bronze, gold, and silver were also found in these areas. The copper and bronze were used to make tools, weapons, ornaments, and vessels. Gold and silver were used to make ornaments and vessels. The weights were also found in these cities. These weights must be used for the trading purpose and to weigh the beads and precious stones, etc. Blades were also found in this city which were being used for making beads. And seals were found which were in rectangular shapes. These seals were used by the traders and Pots were also found with beautiful black designs were there in that pot. And a statue was found out which had beautiful embroidery design which was carved in the statue. And the cotton was used by them. A piece of cotton cloth was also found on the lid of a silver vase which was found at Mohenjo-daro. And spindle whorl was also found which was used to spin thread in terracotta and faience. In these two materials the spindle whorls were found. Terracotta is a clay and faience is a gum which was used to shape sand or powdered quartz into an object. The raw materials which were used by them was from locally available, but many of the things were only traded and imported into the cities. The items which were imported were copper, tin, gold, silver and precious stones. Copper was from Rajasthan, Oman, tin was from Afghanistan and Iran, gold was from Karnataka, precious stones were available at Gujarat, Afghanistan and Iran. The transportation was also done. How we found out? With the help of the seal and a toy like a cart. So with the help of these two objects found by the archaeologist, we studied about the transportation which was done by them. Then they found a toy, a plow toy, and with that we studied that the irrigation was done with the help of a plow and water must be drawn from the wells and stored in some places to grow the plants. All those things we studied today. In the next session we will study about the Harappan towns, the other towns which were there in Gujarat. We will study about the seals and sealings and